Despite being incredibly budget friendly, what this deck is capable of doing might shock you. What is up guys, this is tcgsam here, and in today's video I'm coming at you guys with some virtual role test hand / combo tutorials for the post-June 2023 format. If you haven't checked out the deck profile already, I encourage you to do so using the link in the description below, just so you have a better idea of what the cards do as well as some of the card choices that I'm playing. But that being said, let's just hop into our very first test hand, draw our opening 5 cards and see what we can do. So we're going to start things off with Lulu, Lily, Ash, and Nyan. So this is a pretty solid hand, even though we have duplicates of Lulu. The fact that we have virtual names to begin with is good enough already. And you're going to notice that if we have a way to see like at least one name, we can get to our other names really easily, which is great. We're going to start by normal summoning the Nyan. So we're going to activate the Lulu targeting the Nyan. Lulu is actually going to send a trap card to the graveyard, and we are going to send Chuche to be able to add a copy of Kowloon from our deck to our hand. And then the reason why we're doing this is because we're going to have access to a spell later on anyways with Lily. Since we already have this extra name in hand, we can have the luxury of Kowloon placing a Chuche face up to give us something great to target. But before we do that, we're just going to go Lily targeting any one of our virtual monsters. This time we're dumping the spell, the Qinglong, and use its effect to dump the extra Shanwu just so we have an extra extender in the graveyard. And here at this point, we actually have the ability to play around a card like Nibiru by using Chuche to increase the level of Lulu by 3. Then sending these two to the graveyard to summon out Ultimate Zolkin. Then since we search the spell or trap card, we can set it and activate the Zolkin effect, which is going to summon Crystal Wing on our 5th summon. And this way we play around Nibiru, we play around potential like held hand traps for some reason, and it's just a great part of our end board. So now from here, we're insulated from those types of hand traps. What we can do is activate the effect of our Qinglong, since we haven't used it yet, to be able to add a copy of Lao, and we are going to discard the extra copy of Lulu. And then from here, we're going to activate the Kowloon just to place a trap face up on our field, so we have something that isn't a monster to target, which is important because this combo I'm about to show is actually a kind of cool play you can make, because you can go Lao, target Chuche, dump Jiji specifically, and the reason we're dumping Jiji is because we're going to be able to add it back to our hand later on in our combo, because now we're just going to summon back the Lily, overlay the two for a copy of Constellar Ptolemy M7. And the reason why I'm going through jumping through these hurdles to get Jiji is because Jiji guarantees us follow-up for the next turn. So if our board gets cracked, partially cracked, we have a virtual world name guaranteed for next turn, and we don't necessarily have to have a spell in the graveyard, even though we're going to get one later on anyways. So from here, I'm going to detach the Lao to add back the Jiji. And then from here, we're going to activate the Jiji effect targeting the Chuche to dump a copy of Virtual World Gate Qinglong just as additional follow-up for the next turn. And then from here, what we can simply do is turn these two into a copy of Muddy Mudragon. Just a quick note here, I didn't realize that Nyan wasn't a tuner at this point, so if you want to make this play, you need to use the Shanwu in the graveyard and summon back a Lulu, discarding the Ash Blossom to get yourself the tuner, and then synchro away the Lulu and the Nyan to make the Muddy Mudragon and then go from there. Muddy Mudragon to fuse away these two for a Caliga, since we have Alistair the Invoker and a Dark Monster in Ultimate Zolkin. This is a pretty formidable end board. You have Caliga here saying your opponent can only attack with one monster, and they can only attempt to activate one monster effect per turn. You have a Crystal Wing to negate a monster effect, and you have Chuche to protect your Caliga from getting run over. Plus during the end phase, since we went through the trouble of sending Jiji to add it back to her hand, what we can do is just add any virtual world monster from our graveyard back to her hand. I personally like Lao the best because he generates the most bodies right away, and we don't really need Lulu because we already have access to Chuche anyways. Not to mention we have Ptolemy M7 during the next turn, which is threatening either a bounce on a monster or another graveyard recursion back to her hand. It's important to note that with this combo, instead of the Ptolemy M7, you could have still ended on the same board with this being a Shenzhen instead. I think the difference would be you might have to give up the Ash Blossom in your hand as a discard for Shanwu, and you wouldn't have the extra follow-up from a card like Lao in your hand off of Jiji, and yeah, you just wouldn't get Jiji into rotation, and thus you wouldn't get the spell into rotation. So I think it's a lot worse if you ended on the Shen, just because it takes a lot more resources away from you and doesn't give you that follow-up. And with this type of board, like, it's already so good against like the combo decks out there, the Shenshen just isn't really needed. Of course, if you're playing against like a control deck, like, you rather make Shenshen in this case, but blind going game one going first, like, I think this is a pretty solid board because a lot of decks just can't actually answer this without a hard drawn card like board breakers or whatever. So that's going to do it for the very first going first test hand. We're going to be doing a going second test hand, just because I have so many virtual world videos on my channel already, a whole playlist actually dedicated to them. So if you want to see more like specific combos or more test hands for going first, then be sure to check those out using the link in the description below, so you guys have a better idea of some of the things this deck can do. Because just that one test hand, like, our hand was pretty decent, but there are some bad, quote-unquote bad hands even that you can still combo with, which I show in those videos, so do check those out if you have the chance. We're just going to quickly do a going second test hand, and in this test hand, I'm just going to be describing some of the things this deck can do going second. You have roughly like 10 to 12 non-engine slots in your deck, which can be nice since we did draw like 2 non-engine cards here. But even in the case that we don't, like, the virtual world in-engine actually has like some way to actually break boards. So let's say we're going to double hand trap our opponent, draw for turn. Here, this is pretty solid because what we have right away is starting with emergency teleport, we can grab out either a tuner or non-tuner. We can go for Zeus right away. So like, for example, let's just say we go for the Zeus line. We summon out Nian Nian. We go jiji targeting the Nian Nian, dumping a spell into our graveyard. And then from here, let's say our opponent doesn't have anything to answer this. We're just going to overlay for Fortune Tune, attack, and then make a Zeus. And then we'll say we Zeus our opponent. And then from here, we have like Qinglong Lalao, which is incredibly good because after clearing their board, not only do we have like Qinglong to potentially negate something else if we need to, we also have Lalao to just get all of our plays started. So from here, Lalao is going to target the Qinglong, and then we can just send a trap or a monster. Here we have all the good monster in the graveyard already. So we're going to summon itself out, summon jiji back, activate the Nian Nian effect to summon itself out. What we're going to do here is actually go for a Starter's Charge Warrior because we want the draw to be able to resolve this Qinglong in our graveyard to search for a copy of Lulu. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to summon out the Charge Warrior. Nian Nian gets banished by its own effect. Draw a card. It literally didn't matter what it was because we were just going to end up discarding it for Qinglong most likely, because Qinglong now can go ahead and add Lulu, discard the Gamma, and then activate Lulu targeting the Qinglong. So we're going to search Chuche and then dump any monster from our deck to the graveyard. You can just dump another copy of Nian Nian here since we have just to get into the graveyard for like an additional follow-up during the next turn. And then here you have a couple of different options. You can do something like go directly for Shenshen and just set Chuche and end phase add some follow-up back. That's pretty simple. You end on Shenshen Chuche in a very simplified game state that can be incredibly powerful. If you want to do something a little more, you can send these two away for, or Ultimaya, set this, summon Crystal Wing. So instead of the Shenshen, you have access to Crystal Wing Chuche, which is, I guess you can say, better against some decks. It really depends on like what deck your opponent's playing. You have a lot of different options to go into, which is one of the beauties of this deck. You have so much flexibility, and just in this very simplified game state, I'm pretty sure no matter what we go for, we're in a pretty good shape because in the end phase, we have jiji adding back a Lalao for follow-up. And then we have a Chuche on the board to like out some of our opponent's cards. Overall, that's going to do it for the test hand video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought in the comment section below. This deck, of course, isn't the best deck out there, but it's very strong considering how cheap it is. And if you haven't seen the deck profile already, I go over some like different options you can play in this deck. If you don't like some of the cards that you're seeing here, there are plenty of different options you can go for just because of how flexible and versatile this deck is. But with all of that being said, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.